Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains adamant that the building of homes in the Jewish heartland of Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem is not the cause for Palestinian violence. In fact, he insists Jewish building has not impacted peace negotiations with the Palestinians at all. The Israeli leader made his remarks to participants at the prestigious Saban Forum taking place in Washington. Netanyahu reminded the audience that Arabs have been murdering Jews since before the Jewish state was founded. This comes as the United Nations and the Obama administration have pressured Israel against building in Judea, Samaria, and the capital city, implying that Jewish homes were the obstacle to peace rather than the Palestinians' vicious campaign of terrorism and their refusal to negotiate with Israel.
If U.S. President Barack Obama does make a move at the United Nations, he certainly won't have the backing of the American public. According to the latest poll conducted for the Brookings Institute in Washington, less than half of those surveyed said that they would be in support of such a move. A resounding 76% of Americans across party lines say that they believe Israel is a strategic asset to the United States, and those findings rose even higher among older citizens. 86% of the population aged 55 and up recognize the Jewish state as an important American ally.
Israeli officials are voicing strong support for the unanimous decision by the U.S. Senate to enforce the Iran Sanctions Act for another 10 years. The ISA, as it is known, is a set of existing measures that have been in effect since 1996. The legislation punishes outside investments in Tehran's energy industry to deter its pursuit of nuclear weapons. Democratic Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey told his fellow lawmakers that the extension is imperative due to continued violations by the hardline Islamic regime, including the testing of ballistic missiles and the ongoing state sponsorship of terrorism. President Obama now needs to sign the bill before the ISA is set to expire at the end of the year. In a statement directed at the White House, Menendez demanded the extension be approved as a demonstrative reassurance to Israel and other allies that the U.S. remains fully committed to regional security.
Staying with the ISA, and Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman is urging the advancement of even more sanctions against Iran. The Israeli defense chief says that it's very clear that the Islamic regime consistently violates its 2015 nuclear pact with the international community. Looking toward the future, Lieberman expressed his hope that the incoming Trump administration will share a common vision with the Israeli government on the future of the Middle East. The two sides already agree about the dangers posed by the Iran deal. During his campaign, the president-elect declared his intention to scrap the pact, which was strongly opposed by Jerusalem.
Meanwhile, Israel is accusing Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of shipping weapons aboard a private airline to the Hezbollah terror group. The allegations were sent in a letter to the United Nations Security Council by Israeli UN Ambassador Danny Danon. The Israeli diplomat detailed the packing of arms and other contraband into suitcases being flown to Beirut by the Tehran-based Mahan carrier or to Damascus for overland transfer to Lebanon. Such activity blatantly violates several Security Council resolutions, and the Iranian airline has already been slapped by U.S. sanctions for similar illegal activity in the past. The latest charges may fuel the debate over last year's nuclear deal, even though the UN arms embargo against the Islamic Republic is not technically part of the agreement. Critics argue that it did not go far enough to prevent the rogue nation's support of terrorism.
Despite vocal condemnation from critics, Israel's security fence has been a resounding success. The barrier was erected during the Second Intifada to prevent Palestinian suicide bombers from infiltrating. The issue of national barriers has been taking on added interest ever since President-elect Donald Trump vowed to build one between the U.S. and Mexico. A new Reuters documentary on the hot-button topic reveals that at the time that the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, there were only 15 others in existence. Today, there are 70, in nations ranging from Russia to Norway. As many countries increasingly invest in such walls, none have been targeted by the extreme criticism that Israel has, once again demonstrating the powerful double standard exercised against the Jewish state.
There's been further victories against the international boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Ontario just became the first Canadian province to denounce the hate campaign against Israel. The legislature passed a motion with overwhelming support rejecting any differential treatment of the Jewish state, including BDS. The Conservative Party lawmaker who sponsored the bill described the movement as thinly veiled anti-Semitism that silences debate and intimidates the Jewish community. This is the second time in less than a year the North American country has rejected the pro-Palestinian campaign. This past February, the House of Commons passed a law condemning any and all attempts by organizations, groups, or individuals to promote BDS both in Canada and abroad. And in a related story, Ohio just joined 9 other states to pass its own anti-BDS legislation as part of an increasing American effort to stomp out the spurious movement. Any companies hoping to do business with the state, whether they're located in Ohio or elsewhere, are now required to sign contracts explicitly stating that they are not boycotting or divesting from Israel. Republican Representative Kirk Schuring of Canton sponsored the bill. He says the continuation of Ohio's strong alliance with Jerusalem will provide even greater opportunities to bolster the state's own economy. And finally, here's a story that could add a little sparkle to your day. Anyone who appreciates diamonds knows their worth is determined by the 4 critical C's: carats and cut, which can be measured, as well as color and clarity, which necessitate a tedious, time-consuming, and highly subjective appraisal process by teams of gemologists. Now, however, Israel's Serene Technologies has just pioneered the world's first software capable of automatically grading both color and clarity far more efficiently and objectively than the human eye. The Israeli machines work by pairing camera, optic, and lighting technologies with artificial intelligence. Industry buffs describe the achievement as revolutionary and groundbreaking. The ability of the new Israeli system to provide a more accurate assessment of the stone's value is expected to benefit both manufacturers as well as consumers. Aaron, tell me, are diamonds still a girl's best friend?
Absolutely are, Yochanan, especially this time of year with the holidays coming up.
Don't get your hopes up.
Israel, the light unto the nations, today faces attack from more than just rockets and terrorism. Calls to boycott, sanction, and divest from Israel, known as BDS, are a form of economic warfare that you can help to prevent. The Israel Allies Foundation has launched a public service campaign called Defeat BDS, offering educational tools and other resources that you can use to stand with Israel and help make a difference. Just visit the easy-to-use website at www.defeatbds.org.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful, sunny, but windy day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Seth Mandel. He's the founder and president of the Kobe Mandel Foundation. Seth, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Seth, tell our viewers a little about who was Kobe Mandel.
Josh, Kobe was my 13-year-old son. 15 years ago, he went out hiking near our home in Tekoa, and he and his friend Yosef Ishner were stoned to death by Palestinian terrorists. It was a very brutal crime. He was a young boy trying to explore the land of Israel, explore his neighborhood, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and was killed because he was a Jewish boy.
You know, you've since started the Kobe Mandel Foundation. Can you tell us a little about what is the Kobe Mandel Foundation?
Sure, Josh. After Kobe was killed, we wanted to do something in his name to really to replace the power we felt was stolen from the world when such a boy was murdered. Our major program is a camp for about 400 Israeli children who have lost an immediate family member, terror victims, if you will. We have programs for mothers as well that my wife runs. We have something called Comedy for Kobe, which is a nationwide program in English with comedians from all over America. We have kids coming to serve as counselors from America on our programs. And my wife wrote a book called The Blessing of Her Broken Heart, which won a National Jewish Book Award, and has a new book out as well called The Road to Resilience. So we've been very active and busy trying both to help the children and families of people who have lost their lives to terror, as well as spread the word about Israel and the positive things that Israel is doing in the world today.
Well, the murder of Kobe Mandel was a major source of sorrow in the land of Israel, and since it's helped so many Israelis who have gone through the same circumstances as you, but I understand as well in America now there is a lot of residual effects, including a bill in Congress. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there have been somewhere around 60 Americans murdered by terrorists outside of the U.S. Several years ago, there was a bill called the Kobe Mandel Act, which was passed, created a separate unit within the Justice Department to both prosecute terrorists who are overseas, follow their cases to make sure that justice is being served, and be in touch with the families of those terror victims who were killed by Palestinian terrorists in particular and terrorists all over the world.
A lot of people don't realize is that some of the victims of terror are not just Jewish Israelis, but also Christian Israelis. And the Kobe Mandel Foundation is focusing on one such victim in a new initiative. Can you tell us about that?
That's right, Josh. Christine Lucan, family is from San Antonio, was murdered several years ago while hiking in the Jerusalem forest. She was a Christian woman. She was with another woman who was severely injured. We just began a new initiative for a special scholarship in Christine's name to bring more kids to our camp to really help heal even a wider portion of these children who are affected by terror.
You know, the flagship program for the Kobe Mandel Foundation is the summer camp. How does this affect people, children who have gone through this type of situation, who are scarred by terror? How does it affect them to gather people who have all gone through that experience together?
That's a great question, Josh. What happens is that those who are bereaved from anything, according to psychology, particularly terror, feel isolated from the rest of the community. There's no one that they can really talk to. So therefore, as we know, talking is really one of the best ways that people heal. This puts them in an environment where they're not alone, they're not different than everybody else. They're really in a place where they can talk about how they feel, they can talk about what happened to them. My son was there a number of years ago, and when asked on TV what was different about Camp Kobe, he said, well, last night we all got together and we talked about the funerals and the mourning process of our brothers and sisters. That's not a conversation that these children can have anyplace else, and yet it is a conversation they need to have to really normalize, if not normalize, and make more normal what they feel and what they think. And that's why we have a lot of psychology, therapeutic kinds of things in the program, as well as much fun as we can get.
You know, one of the things that is very well known here is the Comedy for Kobe program. It's wildly successful. How do you take such a horrifying, scary topic and have comedy together with it? How does that work?
Well, you know, Kobe loved comedy. On the computer, he had downloaded about 300 jokes. Mostly one-liners from all over the world, all in English. He used to make me tell him jokes at the Sabbath table and things like that. We feel it's a real expression of who he was as a person, and of course, we want the world to laugh. We want the idea of Kobe Mandel to something which brings positivity into the world, to bring laughter in the world. People look at Kobe and say, this was not just a 13-year-old boy. This is someone whose life and whose murder brought great positive energy into the world, really brought some godliness into the world. And that's one of the best ways that we think we can do it.
Seth, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I think, first of all, to realize that there is an ongoing war against terror. Individuals who are forgotten when they are affected by terror, and we need to come together to help the children of Israel to heal through the Kobe Mandel Foundation, as well as help the American victims of terror to make sure that their murderers are brought to justice in a fair and in a just manner. And if anything that we can do to help that, financially or otherwise, we get money from Christians all over the world to help fund our programming, because I think that our program is saving these children's lives.
Thank you, Seth, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Hello and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren HaYesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. It was foretold that the children of Israel would return to their land on the wings of eagles. This is why it was so important for Keren HaYesod to support the establishment of Israel's first airline. I hope you enjoy. God bless you from Jerusalem.
The divine promise of bringing the children of Israel to their land was given to Moses at the foot of Mount Sinai. I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to me, as it is written in the book of Exodus, is a prophecy that has sparked the immigration for 3,000 years. And with the establishment of the Zionist movement and the State of Israel, it has begun to be fulfilled. Eagles made of steel of El Al Airlines have taken to the skies of the Holy Land, carrying with them hundreds of thousands of new immigrants to Israel. They have come from Yemen and Iraq, from North Africa and Ethiopia, from Russia and Ukraine. El Al, Israel's flagship carrier, was established with the support of the donors of Keren HaYesod, a global organization authorized by the Israeli government to raise funds for Israel's most important priority projects. Most urgent is the task of bringing Jews to Israel from countries of distress where they face danger. Just after Israel's establishment, nearly 50,000 Jews were brought to Israel from the ancient Yemenite Jewish community. In 1951 and 1952, more than 130,000 Jews from Iraq were brought home to safety in Israel. El Al Airlines was a key player in these airlifts and in waves of immigration since. Perhaps no one better epitomizes Israel's immigration story than Aryeh Oz. He was accepted into the pilot school of the Israel Air Force and earned his pilot's wings in 1956, and after completing his military service, joined El Al Airlines. He returned to the Air Force in 1991 to fly a jumbo jet taking Ethiopian Jews home to Israel in Operation Solomon.
We were about to evacuate 14,500 Ethiopian Jews from Addis Ababa to Tel Aviv. I flew a 747. We had 760 seats, and I sat on the floor between the seats. We had 1,087 souls on board. I said it's our obligation as the Jewish people to bring everybody to Israel. I felt so happy, that I took part in an operation like this. When we descended and came over Jerusalem, there was not one person in the cockpit who had no tears in his eyes.
For nearly 100 years, Keren HaYesod's vision has turned the dream of the return of the Jewish people to Israel into reality and remains at the center of efforts to sustain and develop a flourishing Jewish homeland in fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
Every time that when I made my walk around in order to see that the aircraft is serviceable, I always looked up and saw the Star of David and said to myself, gee, I'm flying El Al. This is El Al. This is Israel. This is the Jewish people.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
The Jewish people, the people of Israel, are the only nation in history ever to establish an independent state in the land of Israel. Not under the Greeks, not under the Romans, not under the Turks, not under the Arabs, Israel was never an independent state except under the Jews. And that right and that historical connection was recognized by the British government in 1917 when they issued the Balfour Declaration, which called for the establishment of a Jewish national home in our traditional and ancient homeland, the land of Israel. That declaration was built in to the decisions of the League of Nations to create a British mandate here in the land of Israel. And that mandate specifically called for the establishment of that homeland. And the British mandate became the basis of the UN Partition Resolution of November 1947, calling for the creation of a Jewish state in the land of Israel. Internationally recognized and recognized throughout history as the historic and ancestral home of the Jewish people, and only of the Jewish people. Today, our right to areas of Judea and Samaria have been recognized by international jurists who say that since those areas never belonged legally to any sovereign state, that those areas were illegally occupied by Arab forces between 1948 and 1967, that Israel, as the heir to the British Mandate and the Partition Resolution, actually has the greatest international legal right to those territories, including the city of Jerusalem. Our rights are unassailable. We must stand up and defend them, and defend the Jewish people, who alone throughout history have established sovereignty in our ancestral homeland.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Please stay tuned for the ICJ Report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
We're on our way to Ben Gurion Airport, and we get the chance to be a part of something really special. I'm so excited for you to see it. After years of waiting and praying, Ethiopian family members anticipate the arrival of their loved ones. Brothers, sisters, sons, daughters. Today, they come home to Israel.
אחות שלי, קבל אחות שלי. 5 שנים לא ראיתי כלום.
אז איך ההרגשה היום?
וואו.
חיוך גדול.
היה כיף. היה כיף היום, באמת.
ולמי את מחכה פה בשדה תעופה?
אחותי.
אחותך?
כן.
וואו.
אחותי, כן.
אז 8 שנים את לא ראית את אחותך?
לא. אני לא יכולתי ללכת אליה, וגם היא לא יכולה לבוא אליי, זה קשה.
אז היום היא תהיה לידך כבר.
כן, תודה לאל. סוף סוף.
God's people are returning to their homeland, and today is a day for rejoicing. However, for some, this aliyah comes at a high price.
18 ዓመት እንግዲህ ጥሩ ነው። በጣም ደስ ይላል። በጣም እናት አባቴ ጋር መገናኘቴ፣ እህቶቼ ቢያልቁብኝም እኔን ለማሳከም መጣ እህቴ። እዛው ሙታኔን አሳክማ ስትመለስ ሙታኔ የመጣችው። እንደገና እንዲቱም ተኔ ጋር ብቻዋን ተቋርጣ ቀርታ ነበረ።
በማልቀስ እናት አባቷን በመሳሳት በልቅሶ አልቅሳ እዛው ሞተችብኝ። ቀብሬ ነው የመጣሁት ብቻዬን። አሁንም ደግሞ ልጄ ተለይታ ቀርታብኛለች። ብቻዋን ነው የቀረችብኝ። አባቷ ግድምም የእናቷ ግድምም ተዚህ ነው ሙለው። እንግዲህ ደስ ይለኛል። በግማሽ ጎኔም ደግሞ አዝኗል ልጄ በመቅረቷ፣ ግማሹም ደስ ብሎኛል። ለስንት ዓመት አንስቼ ያለቀስኩበት እናት አባቶችን በማየቴ በጣም ደስ ነው የሚለኝ። ልጄ በመቅረቷ ግን በጣም አዝኛለሁ። አንጀት ያዝኗል።
What you see behind me is a miracle. Today, Ethiopian families are being reunited after many years. And this is made possible because of our Christian friends from around the world. If you want to be a part of helping more Ethiopian Jewish people come home to Israel, go to icej.org/aliyah.
Experience the heart of Israel and find a renewed vision for your ministry and calling. Refresh your spirit with the Envision Pastors and Leaders Conference. Join us January 23rd through the 26th for an outpouring of knowledge and insight. Here's why you do not want to miss this conference.
I want to encourage every believer who loves God, loves the God of Israel, and loves Israel to consider being a part of Envision Conference. It's a time where you can hear from local believers, both Jewish believers and Arab, to talk about what God is doing in the land of Israel and the miracles that are happening now and the miracles to come. So would you consider being a part of this?
You'll have the opportunity to visit the Prime Minister's office and hear exclusive briefings from prominent Israeli Knesset members.
Well, if you've never been to Envision, you know there's so many blanks will be filled in your walk with God, and you get a new understanding, a new perspective of Israel and the purposes of God for our generation.
Honor the memory of lives lost in a special Holocaust remembrance ceremony at Yad Vashem.
One of the benefits of coming is the networking with like-minded individuals, a lot of young leaders in our UK gathering who are just fun to be with.
Hey, I was at Envision this year, and you should come. It will enhance your life, enhance your ministry, and enhance your call.
Visit envision.icej.org for more information.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.